Hello, everyone. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. Are we good? Are we good? Maybe? We'll see. This is my first time doing this, so we will see how well this works. How is everyone doing tonight? Are we good? Hmm. Muted? I've been muted the whole time. This is my first time doing this. I'm weird. Okay, so welcome everyone to Character Building with Logan. This project kind of stems from something that happened on the Discord when we first started the podcast, and it was late night character creation. So when we started this Twitch and we were trying to think of different things to do, this immediately came to mind because my favorite thing in the world is making characters just for fun. I have so many PDFs and filled out character sheets in various parts of my computer and home that it is kind of embarrassing. So I figured, why not take that hobby and transition it to something that might be helpful to others? So welcome. Tonight we are going to be making a character from a game that I love, and if you're familiar with the podcast, you will probably guess exactly which game I'm going to be making a character for, and that game is Changeling the Dreaming 20th Anniversary. This is a game I've been playing since I was 15, and it's near and dear to my heart. I've been through all editions of it, and will likely be playing it until the day of my death, and I might even negotiate that. We'll figure it out. um, so what I'm going to do tonight is I'm just going to go through and slow down my process of building a character. So for those of you that might not be familiar with World of Darkness and how you build a character in that, you'll get kind of like a visual guide more or less on how to do it. And maybe along the way I'll tell some stories and embarrass myself, and you can laugh at me as I laugh at myself too. It's going to be a grand old time. I might make a Pooka. My roommate is currently on the chat, basically throwing shade at me because I ask him to make characters all the time, and that's, because I'm trying to educate him. And by educate him, I mean fulfill my sick fantasies of making characters in gaming 24/7. The dream is real, y'all. The dream is real. So, why don't we jump right into it? I keep getting requests to make a Pooka, so I think that has pretty much been determined for me. But characters cannot exist in a vacuum. So for those of you watching the stream right now, do you have any suggestions on maybe a setting or a theme that I can kind of cling onto for a concept? If not, I will do something on my own. But I would love to maybe have your input on this and see what we can maybe build together. I'll give you just a second to respond in the chat. Somewhere warm, please. Tired of the cold? I frankly wish it were snowier, but why don't we make someone from maybe the Kingdom of Pacifica? For those of you not familiar with Changeling the Dreaming, the Kingdom of Pacifica is basically California, Oregon, and Washington. And well, I'm getting Salem, Massachusetts too. I think we're gonna. I'm not making a character from 1680. I think we're gonna go with California. I like this idea of Pacifica. It kind of brings us back to Changeling First Edition, where the meta plot was really centered around the Immortal Eyes trilogy, and the NPCs there were the protagonists of these beautiful novels that were written by the late, great Jackie Casada, who was really instrumental in developing and shaping my perception of Changeling so many, many years ago. So, we're going to make a Pooka from the Kingdom of Pacifica. Now, there's a lot I can do with that. So, Pookas are typically tricksters and confidants and the heart of the group, in my experience. So, what if I made a... Let me think here. What if I made, like, the teacher's pet? And just really played up that Pooka side with that trope of, like, that kid who maybe is a little too good for their own good, if you catch my drift. Typically I would put my name in the player's spot, but we're going to put this here so we all know the concept. And I'm going to be uploading this character sheet to the website, so if you're not familiar with that, it's thestorytoldpodcast.com. It'll probably be in the blog section. So, first things first, we have to determine court, legacies, seeming, and kith. Well, kith has already been decided. Thank you so much to my wonderful listeners out there. But with Pooka, we have to choose an animal. So, teacher's pet. Let's see. There's so many different options, but you also want me to pick something that is uncommon, right? What are some interesting animals that could maybe be like a class pet other than like hamsters and rabbits and stuff? Could we go with maybe a rat? A guinea pig? I don't know if I've ever seen a guinea pig Pooka, which might be really funny for a for the teacher's pet. Let's go with that. I can't spell either, guys. Apparently, like I'd say pickle. I don't know. Guinea pig. Okay, so I think since we're doing teacher's pet, and I really see this as something on the younger side, my first instinct is to go with childling. However, I think that maybe since they kind of brown-nosed this teacher a lot, I might go with Grump, and like they just associate and identify with older people more. They're more reserved and calm rather than that naivete you see in a childling. In Changeling, and for those of you unfamiliar, in Changeling and Dreaming, you have three seemings: Childling, Wilder, and Grump. Now, originally this was tied to your physical age, and one of the best changes in the 20th anniversary edition was that they decoupled that from physical age and made it more your outlook on life. And I'm having trouble with this PDF. It's real cute. Do you want to open? Maybe? There. No? Okay, we're just going to type that in then. So childlings are basically that beautiful worldview of the innocent. Wilders are that rebellious teenager, like wanting to like strike out on their own and be really independent and fight the good fight. And Grumps are those that have done all of that and want to nurture their communities, bring their communities together, and kind of make sure the status quo is upheld. Usually. And yes, Little Miss Harridan, you have got to make a flamingo Pooka someday. I want to see it. It needs to happen. We'll talk. Okay, so next we need to go and think about court. Wow, this PDF is acting weirder than me, and that's saying something. In Changeling the Dreaming, you have two courts. You have the Seelie court and you have the Unseelie court. You can vacillate between the two of them. The Seelie court is about tradition, order, justice, the community, putting all of that before yourself, believing in ideals of chivalry and love, etc., etc., etc. In prior editions, it was considered the good court. By some, that's not necessarily the truth. And then you have the Unseelie court, which is chaos, individuality, freedom, and putting yourself before others. There is nuance to that, but this is a much bigger way to... What am I trying to say? This is a broader way to interpret that, and you can get into the nuance of that as you play. And I think that because we're going to be this teacher's pet who wants to do the right thing and be that good person and make sure that everyone's behaving, which is weird for a Pooka, but hey, we're going to go there. I'm going to go with the Seelie court. Now, after that, you have to pick your legacies. You have two, and I kind of look at legacies as a conversation. I think that your Unseelie legacy, when it's not dominant, should influence your Seelie legacy and vice versa. Other people view this differently. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but think of legacies as a broad brushstroke on how to roleplay your character. It gives you an anchorage for motivation. So for this... Sorry, I'm just making sure that nothing's happening. I got a Discord notification. I was making sure it's still broadcasting because I can't see everything with this many windows. But we will get there. So, initially, I'm drawn to, on the Seelie legacies, both Orchid and Squire. Now, Orchid could be that like little goody two-shoes who is afraid to get hurt, who runs to the teacher to tattle, potentially. And the Squire could be that kid that wants to be like... the teacher's pet because they want to be the teacher, or they want to be like, you know, the head of the class so they can like help out. And I can't decide. Does anyone in the chat have an opinion? Because I could go either way. It doesn't really matter. Let me know while I look at some of these Unseelie legacies, because I really can't decide on any of those. So just give me just a second. Okay, well, I definitely picked out an Unseelie legacy. There's one that jumped out to me the second I started looking at them. So since I haven't heard from anyone, I do think I'm going to go with Squire. I think that this guinea pig Pooka, who I haven't come up with a name yet, but it will come to me, is that kid that signs up for crossing guard duty. That kid that always raises his hand first in attendance and is like actively looking for those gold stars. Very type A. I think it works. But I think what influences that on the Unseelie side of things is the rake. And the rake says your appetites will never be sated, but you do love to try. Now, this can be interpreted a lot of different ways, and I think that this kid wants to be. He's a future valedictorian, and he will do whatever it takes to get there, up to and including sabotage, murder, and deceit. But he's not that old yet, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so that basically is the overarching thing here. On the character sheet, you'll see a couple other tabs. You'll see name, where I can put the name for the character later. You'll see house, and this is an indicator of nobility. This Pooka is likely not a noble. I don't think I'm going to make him a noble, so I can leave that blank. And then Motley is left blank, and that's for the name of the Motley. So if I ever got to play this character, or if you choose to use this character in your own campaign, you can put the name of your Motley in there and go to town. It'll be fun. Okay, so next we're going to go to attributes. You'll see on the character sheet that you have 3 categories. You have physical, social, and mental. You get the first dot in each of them for free. Keep in mind that 2 levels in something is a human average. Now my kid is probably like between 10 and 12. So that, in my mind, will largely influence how the physical traits play out. I do think, though, that I'm going to go primary category of mental. Now, what that means is I get 7 dots to incorporate in the mental categories for this and the mental traits for this character, and those 3 are perception, intelligence, and wits. So I think he's definitely going to be average in all 3 of them. So that's 3 of my 7 points. This PDF is being really weird. Okay, here we go. So I also do think he's above average intelligence. And he's above average in perception. You know, he has to see what all his other, like, you know, classmates are doing so he can tell on them when he needs to. So that's 5. I do think he might be a little naive, so I kind of want to keep wits average. Like, he is too smart for his own good sometimes. But you know what? It's really funny. Initially, I was thinking I wanted this primary, but I'm actually really, really happy with this. So I think I'm going to go keep mental as my secondary trait, and your secondary trait is where you get 5 points. So that still leaves me a primary and a tertiary. Well, you know what? He is very charismatic, so I think social is probably going to end up being primary for him. So I'll end up spending 7 points there. So he is average in all of those. I'd say he's probably a cute kid, so we're going to give him appearance 3. He knows how to game the system, so manipulation 3. And charisma will go up to 3 as well. And that's 6 of my points. Now the question is, where do I want him to excel? I weirdly think, despite being part of the Sealy court, that he is highly manipulative in the way that I find children. I'm not saying all children are manipulative, but I think they know how to get what they want. And that can be a conversation for another day. So that leaves me with physical being tertiary. For tertiary, you get 3 points. I keep getting Discord notifications. Why am I getting... Sorry, I'm just making sure that I'm still streaming, so I'm always thinking someone might be messaging there to get me attention for me that I'm not necessarily seeing somewhere else. So, considering he's 10 to 12, I don't think he's going to be that strong. I think I'm going to leave his strength at 1. I think that makes like a lot of sense. Now, I do think that he would have above average dexterity and above average stamina for running around and just being a healthy kid. But I'm initially going to put these points into stamina, and I'll think about raising dexterity when I get to the end of the character creation, where you get some points to further customize your character. So, now we're into abilities. This is a similar system to how attributes work. You have 3 categories: talents, skills, and knowledges. Any of these abilities can theoretically be paired with any attribute, and that forms how many dice you get for your roll. For example, if he was trying to lie to his parents about getting in trouble in school, which he would never do, ever. He would never get in trouble. I would use manipulation plus empathy, because he's playing to his parents' desires to believe that he's a good kid. So say I had like 4 points in empathy plus my manipulation, I would be rolling 8 dice against a difficulty determined by the GM or the storyteller. Now, initially I wanted my mental category to be primary. And I kind of steered away from that. But I think where I'm going to change that is making his knowledge as primary, which might be a little weird for a kid, but he's also half fairy, so you know what? Things happen. I'm going to put a dot into academics. He's, again, like I said, he's too smart for his own good. But keep in mind, level 1 of academics is like a high school education. Level 2 is college. Level 3 is master's. 4 is like doctoral. And 5 you are like the top of your field and governments come to you for advice. But that being what it is, and a little bit of suspension of disbelief, I'm going to give him academics 1, even though he's not necessarily a high school kid. But I do think he does know his way around computers, so I'll give him 2 dots in that. He can puzzle out a lot of things, so he'll get a dot of enigmas. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, you get 13 points for your primary ability category. It's 13, 9, and 5. You do not get a free dot in anything. Greymare is fairy knowledge and lore. I figure, you know what, I don't think he's necessarily too keen on learning about that yet. But I will give him 3 dots in investigation. He knows how to ferret out information like no other. At this point in character creation, you cannot take an ability over 3. So I'm just going to max that out while I can. So that's 8 of my 13 points. Right? Yeah, 3, 4, 5. No, that's 7. Sorry, I can't count tonight. I do think he will have a couple dots in politics, and while this is kind of an abstraction, I do think he is keenly aware of playground dynamics and cliques. So he's fairly adept at navigating that. Let's see, where else do we want to go? Maybe a dot in medicine. He took a first aid course, you know, straight A's, gold star. He did exactly what he needed to do. Oh, Una, you okay, baby? Una is my dog, and she's laying right here next to me, and she is just being a little persnickety today. That's okay, though. We still love her. Well, as any kid who was born after, like, you know, 2010, I do think he probably has a pretty good knowledge and grasp of how technology works, so I'll give him a couple dots in that. And that puts us at, if my sheet will update, there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Puts me at 12. So it gives me a dot to spare. You know what, I think I'm going to put that in Enigmas too, just because, you know, maybe he likes to do Sudoku because he's a weird kid. I don't know. So my second category is going to be 9 points, and I typically make characters that are really heavy in talents. I want to try to move away from that. Polio? Why are you typing polio? Oh, you don't know why you typed polio. I don't know why you typed polio either. Okay, so I think in light of that, I am going to make skills my secondary category, and I get 3 points for that. So I think initially I'm going to put 2 points into stealth. He knows how to sneak up on his classmates when they're doing what they shouldn't be doing and getting them into trouble. So there's 2 of my 9 points. Animal Ken, you know what? He's a Pooka. He can turn into a guinea pig. He instinctively understands animals. Let's put a couple points into that. I am not going to get into any kind of discussion about like a 10 to 12-year-old driving, so I'm just going to avoid that entirely. Same thing with firearms. I bet flamingos are fast, but I'm not making a flamingo. I do think, because he is the teacher's pet, that he has a deep and abiding respect for rules, so I'm going to give him 3 points in etiquette. This boy knows how to behave. He has probably gone to cotillion classes. No, we're going guinea pig. I said guinea pig a while ago. Anyways. Ooh, I need a refresher. One moment. We're not sponsored. So that's 7 points, right? Maybe a dot in survival. I could see him being a Boy Scout and having gone camping. I told Kim that she needs to make the flamingo Pooka. I don't want to steal that idea from her. I think that would be really and highly inappropriate of me, and I'll probably do it in secret and not tell anyone. I mean, you know, whatever. So, you know what? I think I'm gonna put a dot into crafts. You know, just for art and crafts. Like, he can make a good, mean macaroni necklace. And on the first dot, not the second one. Man, okay, so I pay for Adobe PDF, and this is unacceptable because now everything's disappearing. There we go. Where is it? Well, you can make a manatee Pooka if you want. I'm completely fine with that. Okay, so for talents, I have 5 points. Now, I think because he is that type A overachiever that he is pretty alert, so I'll give him a point in that. You know, he's a kid. There are limits. I do think he is relatively athletic. I'm going to be touching on that later with freebie points. I do think he is quite empathetic, especially being the teacher's pet. He knows how to get on people's good side. So that's that. That's 4. Wow, those go quick. And leadership. I think he knows how to lead a classroom. Okay. So, this is the core of your character. Everything else that comes after this is going to be magical things he can do, his birthright and frailties, health, and backgrounds. Backgrounds are also something I typically put a lot of points into, but I'm trying to do something a little different with him today, especially considering the fact that he's fairly young. So I guess 10th grade would be what? Or 10 years old would be what? 5th, 6th grade, or is it 4th? 4th grade. So I can make him between 4th and 6th grade. Why don't we say he's 11 and make him in the 5th grade? Wendell. Ooh, I like that name. Okay, actually, I'm going to take that. His name is now Wendell. Wendell. Good. We'll come up with the last name in a little while. Wendell the guinea pig Pooka. God, this sounds like a terror, and I really want to play him someday. Okay, so for backgrounds, unlike most World of Darkness games, which give you 7 background points, Changelings have always been a little strange in that they've always only gotten 5. There's all kinds of things that you can take. From Chimera, which are magical dream objects and creatures that only you can see. Contacts, which are sources of information. Dreamers, holdings, mentors, remembrance. Remembrance is kind of cool because it is very specifically remembering your past lives. You also have resources, which is money. I think giving an 11-year-old a resources of 1 would be an insane amount of allowance, so I will probably be avoiding that. Yes, Stephen, he probably does wear sweater vests, and if anyone would like to draw him, you are more than welcome to. Okay, so I have 5 points. I think I am going to take Mentor. Probably a local changeling at the school. Probably not his teacher, though. I think that's a little too on the nose. I think his mentors may be like a PE teacher or a janitor who like watches out for him, because this kid probably hasn't had the most typical education in terms of how to be introduced into changeling society, but he does watch out for him. I will come up with a name for him when we get to the second part of the sheet. So that's 2 of my 5 points. Let's see. I say he probably has a contact. I think this is where he gets gossip about stuff going on with the school. And I think it's the lunch lady. And I'll come up with her details later, but I'm going to make a note here that that's who that is. Just so I can remember that when we get there. Okay, so that's 3 of my 5 points. This PDF thing is really wigging me out. I don't know if y'all are seeing it on your end, but basically anytime I click something, it just disappears and takes a minute to come back. It's really frustrating, but we'll pull through. Okay. Ooh, another Discord notification. Nope, not for me. Someone else. Okay. Why is it doing this? You know what? I'm going to try something else here. Give me just a second, my friends, while we deal with this. I'm going to try to... Here we go. Want to bear with me while we're dealing with tech. think that will work. Okay. Now, where were we? Backgrounds. See if this gives me a little bit more of a leeway here. There we go. So I have 2 points left to spend. I kind of think that I am going to give him a couple dots in remembrance. I think he has a few distinct memories of past lives that kind of bleed into his day-to-day. Ooh. Now the question is, should I do 1 or 2 dots of this? I think 2. Let's just simplify that just a little bit. None of the other backgrounds are really playing out to me right now. Of course, it would be helpful if these dots would fill in for the other backgrounds, wouldn't it? I do apologize, everyone. I don't know why Adobe is doing this. It shouldn't be doing this, especially considering I pay for it every month. Okay, now arts. Arts are going to be the complicated thing. As a changeling, he gets 3 points in arts, and this can do a lot of different things. I think being kind of a tattletale and kind of a know-it-all, I think soothsay makes a lot of sense. And if you have the book and want to look, if you go to page, let's see, page 221 of the book, you can see what different levels of soothsay do. Level 1 lets him scry, and level 2 lets him find stuff. Well, I think level 2 of that sounds absolutely wonderful. What does level 3 do, though? Ooh. You know, actually, I'm going to make him a pure soothsayer, because level 3 is tattletale, and that might be the most specific art that he probably uses. And what it does, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it lets you scry different places. Where Omen gives you premonitions, Omen is the first level. Level 3 lets you see what people are doing from far away, and that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so there's 3 levels of arts. Now you get realms. Now realms are really the important part of Changeling magic. It determines everything you can affect. If you don't have a certain level of a realm, you can spend some of your glamour to bypass that, but that does get expensive after a while. And they build on each other. Now, actor deals with anything mundane in terms of being a person. Fae deals with anything magical. Nature deals with uncrafted natural phenomena and objects like rocks, water, trees, grass. Prop has to do with man-made objects. The higher levels you get, the closer you can get to technological things. So it's a matter of scale. Scene and time are very different. They are secondary realms. They do make your magic harder. However, scene lets you affect multiple targets or an area. Sometimes scene can be the primary realm, but it doesn't happen as much, especially in C20. Time, as opposed to building off of each other, lets you do different types of effects that lets you suspend a cantrip, which is what a changeling spell is called. You can extend it, you can make it permanent in some cases. There's a lot of different things time does. I don't think he has time, though. I think he has quite a bit of actor, so I'm going to put 3 points into that. I think he has a dot of scene, you know, for the classroom. And then, let's see, I have a point left. Now, I think it's important for changelings to have a dot of Fae, because I think being able to affect fairy things is quite important. So I'm going to put my last dot into Fae. I could see me spending a lot of freebies in realms. I think Wendell probably is quite adept at casting magic on a variety of different things. Okay, so now we're going to go into some of the latter parts of this, and I'm going to go into what is called the tempers. as your glamour, willpower, banality, and nightmare. Nightmare has to do with how you cast magic and if you unleash your cantrips, which is where instead of doing one of the codified spells that are in the book, you instead give it up to God, as the expression goes, and see what the magic will let you do. It can go out of your control to sometimes disastrous effects. But if you do that, you gain nightmare. If you get too much nightmare, it can start messing with your willpower, which can then start affecting your sanity. And that's the ultimate tragedy of Changeling, and that's why it's part of the World of Darkness, is because you're slowly forgetting that you're special, or you're slowly going insane because you are neglecting the mortal half of your life too much. And it's a delicate balance that all Changelings have to find. And I am kind of the opinion that most have a hard time finding that balance. But it kind of depends on how your game goes. So, now we're starting. So, you start with a base glamour of 4 and a base willpower of 4. We'll see if those fill in. Oh, yeah. Oh, I see you saying, yeah, Soothsay does sound great for Wendell. I agree. 100%. Although I do think I'm going to spend 5 points to get another art, and I'll explain that one here in a little bit. It might seem a little weird at first, but it will make sense. I'm just waiting for this to update. I don't understand. I've heard other people talking about Adobe doing this lately, and like it's driving me crazy. It's been doing it for weeks now, and it does it on every computer I have, and I cannot figure out why. But I hope they figure it out soon because it's getting really frustrating. I can't see what I'm doing half the time. You see, like you're here with me. You're seeing this. It's ridiculous. Anyways, so after you get those two, and you also fill in the boxes below because those are your temporary points. Those are what you can spend. So when you're playing Changeling, if you run out of temporary glamour, you can sacrifice one of your permanent points to immediately refill your pool up to your new maximum. Willpower does not suffer that. Banality, however, starts at 3, and every time you get 10 temporary points, you gain a new permanent point of banality. You kind of don't want that to happen, but you also don't want your glamour to get so high that you're unleashing and having so much magic around you that you start slowly forgetting that you're human, too. Again, delicate balance. But for right now, Wendell doesn't have to worry about that. He is a fun-loving kid who just knows he's right. Huh. Sounds like someone I know. Anyways, you do get a bonus to one of these, and that's based on your seeming. Earlier we talked about the Changeling, Wilder, and Grump, remember? Well, if I had chosen Changeling, I would have gotten a bonus to my glamour. If I would have chosen Wilder, I could have chosen either glamour or willpower. And you'd kind of pick that, in my mind, dependent on your overall concept and build of your character. As a Grump, though, I get a permanent point of willpower, which is pretty useful, especially for a Pooka, because we'll get into that in a minute with their Birthrights and Frailties, and those are really fun. In fact, that's where we're at. Birthrights and Frailties. So, if you're looking at the book, and I don't have the PDF open, but I do have the book, so it's similar, and you go to page 98 of the book, not the PDF. I think the PDF is a page different one way or the other. You will see a couple things. This is the overall blurb for the Pooka Kith. You'll see things like a Kith description, like a brief little history, what they typically look like, how they live, how Childlings, Wilders, and Grumps kind of operate to kind of give you some anchorage to let you know how they function. You'll see something with each Kith that says affinity. Pooka's affinity is with nature. Now, that means that whenever you cast a cantrip and use that realm, you get a -1 difficulty to your roll because it is something kind of baked into your soul, more or less. You'll see something about Revelry. This is something new to C20, and Revelry is a thing that you can do, each Kith has one, that allows them to regain glamour and kind of revel in the beauty of what they are. Also, too, you'll see something about unleashing. I mentioned that earlier. When unleashing happens, it's very colorful, it's very dynamic, but it's also influenced by your kith and how it manifests. So, for example, in the book it says unleashing. Animal sounds and bright flashing colors are the hallmarks of Pooka cantrips. They also often have unintended side effects which leave egg on the face, sometimes literally of the target or even the Pooka. Now, to give you an idea of what this means, you can flip to any of the other kits and look at their Revelry options. Let's look at the Boggans. When Boggans unleash, they're accompanied by the pleasant sense of hearth and home in the field, baked bread, mulled cider, fresh mown grass, tobacco, and wood smoke. So it really flavors and helps you dive into the narrative and the role-play aspects of playing a World of Darkness game. I think there's some things that C20 did that I didn't necessarily love. I have a little issue with how they approached the Shi, which are the Noble Kith, only because it makes looking back at the prior editions and characters played, they're a little complicated. It does not break the game, and it is a very personal opinion of mine. I stan the Shi, so you can make fun of me for that all you want. But what we're really here to do is look at the birthrights and frailties. So, Pooka have two birthrights, shape-changing and confident. So shape-changing is what lets him turn into a guinea pig. So he can spend a point of glamour and turn into a guinea pig so long as no one is watching him. But you can switch back without spending the glamour. Again, you cannot be watched. So I can imagine, he's probably, decide to go talk to the guinea pig at school, been in the cage, and realized that someone came in and he had to sit in the cage for a while. I'd be irritated. Maybe that's why he decided to become the teacher's pet, just so he can get shit done. You didn't hear it from me. The second Pooka birthright is confidant. The Pooka, despite all of their flaws, and they're not that flawed, Pooka are lovely. One of my dearest friends. It's her favorite kith. She pretty much exclusively plays them, and she plays them so well, and has very strong opinions about them. And I hope that she would really like the fact that I'm making one tonight. But confidant mean they have an ability to get people to open up to them and tell them their deepest, darkest secrets, whether they realize they're doing it or not. So during any conversation, whoever's playing the Pooka can make an opposed perception plus empathy check. Remember I talked about that earlier, where you take your attribute plus your ability, combine them, and that's your dice pool? You would roll that, or it says here, or subterfuge, depending on how you're approaching it, both could kind of apply. And it's resisted by the target. So say I'm having a conversation with you and I'm rolling this, and your character doesn't necessarily want to open up to me. You would roll your willpower. If I got more successes than you, my birthright kicks in, and say that I got 3 successes over you, I would get to ask you 3 questions that you would absolutely have to answer. It's just the magic of what Pooka are. But all that glitters is not gold, and every kith has a frailty. The Pooka are subject to the frailty called untruths. And they've really changed how the Pooka did this. It used to be Pooka had to lie about everything unless they spent or rolled willpower, and it was a very high difficulty of an 8. And that leads me to the dice. In World of Darkness, you use D10s. A difficulty 8 means that you have to roll 8 or higher for something to count as a success. And it's still there. However, they've kind of fiddled with it, and as opposed to being just lies, now it has to be a lie somewhere in what they're saying. Something that makes anything they say not quite accurate. I think that's for a little teacher's pet who wants to be a type A go-getter, I think untruths could get him into a lot of trouble down the road, and I'd be really interested to see what happens. Okay, so that's birthrights and frailties. So next, we're going to go and spin freebie points that I talked about. Now, okay, in the book, it's on page 144. It is really bizarre. The freebie point cost in Changeling the Dreaming has always been in the most bizarre spot in the book for all 3 editions. It has always been before the character creation chart, sometimes 2 to 5 pages before it. I am convinced they put it in this book ahead, as tradition. I can neither confirm nor deny that's the right answer, but that's what I like to believe. So, you'll see here how much things cost, and you have 15 freebie points. Well, I know for a fact that I want to raise dexterity, so that's 10 points right, 10 or 5 points right there, and then I want to buy an art. That's 10 points total, which is a lot of buy-in, but I think it actually works. Now, what I do is, because I like to keep meticulous notes on how I build characters, is I like to put on the Birthright and Frailty how much I spend and where. So attribute 5, and I'll scroll up, and I will raise. I still like strength being at 1. I like him being kind of a scrawny kid, but I do want him to be quicker than he is right now. So I'm going to raise his dexterity to 3. Let's see. Now, the art I wanted to buy was Sovereign. Now, typically this is a noble art. They've kind of opened that up a little bit in C20 and made it more about just command and rulership, but with his leadership, I think it makes sense because level 1 lets you make people obey rules. And with his actor and scene, I could see him actually doing this in the classroom a lot. Saying, like, raising his hand going, now miss or mister, I think if we would all just behave and pay attention to the lesson, we would learn a lot more. What do you think? And he'll, like, look back on everyone, use actor and scene because he knows all his classmates and, like, get them to behave. He's a little shit. He's a little charming, underhanded little shit, and I am in love with him. I think he's fabulous. So we'll put here arts 5. So that's 10 of my 15 points. Now I definitely want to raise a couple of abilities, and I think they are going to go into talents. Now, I am going to bank on the empathy, and I don't think he actually lies that much, so I'm not going to raise subterfuge. I am, however, going to spend 2 points on Brawl 1. It's always a good idea when building a World of Darkness character to have at least 1 dot in a combat ability. But I'm going to chalk this up to Brawl being like something like karate or jujitsu that his parents took him to, and he just has a little bit of basic, like, hand-to-hand knowledge. He is 11. I highly doubt he's going to get into heavy combat, but you never know. Shit happens. The other 2 points I'm going to put into Kenning, which I did not have points for earlier. Kenning is like your supernatural awareness ability. Now, I always advocate taking a dot in this for a changeling. It is one of the most useful abilities in the entire game. So I think he needs to have it. So 2 of my points are going there. So that's Kenning. So I'll put down here talents 4. So did I just delete everything? Okay, there we go. So that's 14 points. Now I have 1 point left. I could raise his willpower to 6, which I think might be a little high for a kid, or get a background. And I think I'm actually going to take another background. But which one? Initially, I was thinking Chimera and giving him maybe like a chimerical object that he has, or like, you know, like a chimerical backpack or satchel or something, but I think I'm actually going to take a treasure. And he has a very minor treasure that is equivalent to the level 1 of an art. Bam. So which art? Well, that is a very good question. Let's see. There's a lot of different things you could do. I could give him a piece of chalk that could let him jump really high. I could give him a bracelet with a wooden charm that lets him talk to natural objects. But I think, unless anyone else has any ideas, I think I'm going to give him... Oh, I don't know. What do you think, guys? I have a few different ideas, but I'm not sure if any of them are right. You know what? Actually, I'm going to give him this. I'm going to give him a rock that when it hits the ground or when thrown on the ground, lights and flame. He's a little Boy Scout. He probably found this while camping, and instead of using matches and tinder, he just has a stone with Pyretics 1. Pyretics being the art of fire, and it lets you... it lets you... Oh, wow. Yeah, it can help you start a fire, cook food. So basically, it's a fire starter. So, this is where we go into our second sheet. Oh, before I forget, there is another aspect of this that is merits and flaws. I'm not going to go into that today because I am just about done with my hour, but you can get about 7 points in flaws, and those give you more freebie points. Those freebie points can be used just like anything else for anything else on that freebie point table. Okay, so... Ooh, I said I was going to buy more realms, and I totally didn't. I'm sorry for lying to you, listeners. But that's kind of the beauty of playing these characters, because what I'll be able to do then is actually, if I ever got to play them, raise those with experience points, which is probably one of the coolest things to do in the game whatsoever. I love experience points. I love spending experience points, and I love planning where I'm going to spend experience points. It's a lot of fun. Other people like to sit on their experience. It's kind of a personal preference. Okay, so basically, after you do all that, you kind of have a grasp of what and who your character is. So his mortal name is Wendell, and his fairy name is probably something pretty similar to that, especially because he's one of the quote-unquote commoner kits. And it's going to be Wen, but I'm going to make it W-H-E-N. So to other fairies, they know him as Wen. And let's see, we determined that he's 11. That would type in, that'd be great. Maybe? There we go. Mortal profession, if any. Elementary school student. So, let's see. Chimera, companions, and treasures. And guys, I'm going to clean up this sheet before I post it and everything, so any misspellings or weirdness is going to be totally kind of fixed. So he has a flint rock. Or not flint, that's too on the nose for a treasure. Let's see. Let's probably say some kind of moonstone. Why not? That has Pyretics 1, Kindle. And basically, it has about 5 to 6 dice that I can roll without spending glamour to activate Pyretics 1. And this is he's probably found it very useful camping. Okay, so my roommate mentioned earlier that he definitely wears sweater vests. So I'm just going to make a note that he wears sweater vests. I think he probably also has glasses. I kind of see him as having brown hair. Maybe a little shaggy, because guinea pigs are kind of shaggy, right? Slim to scrawny. Ooh. Wow, I can't type, guys. Look at that. Isn't that amusing? Slim to scrawny. To changelings, his hair is shaggier. Guinea pigs have those 2 large, like, kind of buck teeth, so he has pronounced teeth. Beady eyes. And his voil, and voil is a special... Ooh, what is going on here? Something on my screen. Voil is your chimerical clothing that you are kind of more or less born with when you crystallize. A chrysalis is when a changeling kind of awakens to their nature. And I think his voil is sort of like a shabby boho kind of look. Like large patches, knit cap, neutral colors. Cool. Well, I really like that. So quirks. He is the teacher's pet. Let's see. So identity. Teacher's poet. Wow. Okay, so motivations and goals. To be the next class president, sure, to rewrite school safety measures, to be in charge. Okay, so mortal identity. This is kind of who you are in the real world. Now, this is where I want to talk about his contacts. You can go further into this, but I just want you guys to have a really basic understanding of everything that's on the sheet. I think we kind of understand who Wendell is, but let's know maybe some of the people around him. So, Miss Deb, let's call her, is his contact. She is the, we'll go down to a new line, cafeteria lady at, oh, what's a good name for a school? MacArthur Elementary. And this could be anywhere in California. I would really, were I to play this character, solidify some of these details more in line with whoever my storyteller's setting is in once we got there. She feeds him gossip about the teachers, though, so he knows what buttons to press to get what he wants. He is, while silly and really into the idea of order, he does play fast and loose with some of the court ideals, which is fine. I'm sure you can hear me typing too. I type like I have a hammer for a finger. Okay, so then now we're going into his changeling identity. He doesn't know many changelings, at least not right now, but he does have a mentor, and that is Mr. Dobbs. He doesn't know his first name, he just calls him Mr. Dobbs. And let's maybe make this the school handyman. School handyman. What kith should he be? I think Boggin is a little too on the nose. What if we made him a... What if we made him actually a noble? And made him of House Dougal. I always have to have the she somewhere in there. And this Dougal has taken a liking to young Wendell, to young Wen. Okay, so House Dougal are the house of crafters. They all have some kind of disability. That doesn't ever stop them, though. That's a very important aspect of House Dougal, which I think is really, really cool. But Mr. Dobbs is of House Dougal. Maybe let's make him a knight. And he loves machines. And he is giving our young Wen an education in Changeling Society. And that is a hook right there for the storyteller who, in whatever game we're playing, to use as an NPC. Okay, so guys, we've spent the past 55 minutes making Wen here. You can take as much or as little time doing this as you want. There's no right or wrong answer, really, with making a character, other than parameters set by your GM. But that's it in a nutshell. I've done it in an hour. I've made changelings in less than 15 minutes before. It really kind of depends on what you're doing. But I wanted to give you guys a rundown on kind of how I think about this and how I process this. So that's been our first episode of Building Character. My plan is to do this every week, and I'll bring a different game every Monday to make something. I'm sure I will cycle through Changeling again, and we'll see this again. Maybe we'll make another character in the world of Wendell and see what happens. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We have links to our Discord below. And if you like what you are seeing on Twitch and you like what you're listening to on our podcast episodes, please know that we would love to hear from you. Come and talk to us. We're on most social media platforms, and if you'd like to support us, we do have a Patreon. And thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you coming. Have a wonderful night, and bye.